He had billions. He had a $5,000 a plate dinner in front of him and a supermodel on his arm. But he was bored. So he turned to the waitress, the invisible girl clearing his plates, and made a cruel, public dare. He offered her $20,000 to dance, expecting to laugh. What he didn't know was that he wasn't daring a waitress. He was daring a queen. And in the next 3 minutes, she wouldn't just earn his money, she would begin the unraveling of his entire family's empire. This is the story of how one dance changed everything. The Orion Club wasn't just a restaurant, it was a fortress of wealth, perched 63 floors above Manhattan. Its windows were vast panes of crystal that framed the city like a living constellation. The air inside was still, heavy with the scent of white truffle, expensive perfume, and the low, confident murmur of old money. For the people who dined here, the world was a thing to be observed from a great, comfortable height. For Sophia Hayes it was a cage. Tonight her shoes, sensible, black, and worn thin at the soles, felt like blocks of lead. Her station was table 7, the most coveted and dreaded in the establishment. It was the owner's table, currently occupied by Damien Blackwood. Damien was not just wealthy, he was an inheritor of a legacy that had its name carved into the granite of Wall Street. He was young, impossibly handsome, in a sharp, brutalist way, and possessed an aura of profound, unshakable boredom. He treated the world as his personal amusement, and tonight he was flanked by his usual sycophants, Chadwick, a cackling trust fund echo, and Serafina, a model whose beauty was as striking as it was cold. "This, Chateau Margaux," Serafina said, pushing her glass forward an inch. Her voice was a bored drawl. "It's breathing too much. It's flat. Take it back." Sophia locked her professional smile in place. "My apologies, Miss Vale. This is the 2005. Would you prefer the 2009? Damien didn't even look up from his phone, where he was likely trading stocks worth more than Sophia's annual salary. "Just bring her whatever she wants, sweetheart, and another bottle of the Euro 5 for the table. Don't let her breathing ruin it." "Yes, Mr. Blackwood." "Sweetheart." The word dripped with a condescension that made Sophia's temples throb. She retrieved the bottle, her movements economical and smooth. In this place, you were paid to be invisible, to anticipate needs before they were spoken, and to absorb casual insults as if they were compliments. Each "yes, sir," and "my apologies" was a small betrayal of the person she used to be. The person she used to be didn't serve. She performed. But the person she used to be wasn't drowning in her father's medical bills. The person she used to be hadn't watched her family home auctioned off on the courthouse steps. The person she used to be still believed in things like justice and passion. Now she believed in her next paycheck. She returned with the new wine, presenting the bottle to Damien as required. He waved a dismissive hand, his eyes still glued to his screen. As she poured, her hand was perfectly steady, but her mind was calculating. Tonight's shift, $150. Tips from table 7, maybe $400 if Damien was feeling generous, $100 if he wasn't. That would cover the co-pay for her father's physical therapy. Just her father, Arthur Hayes. He was the ghost at every table she served, a brilliant, kind man who once sat at tables just like this before his life was systematically dismantled. Now, he sat in a rented wheelchair in a tiny apartment in Queens, his body betrayed by a massive stroke, his mind a flickering shadow. "You know, Damien," Chadwick leaned in, his voice oily, "the service here has really gone downhill. Look at her. No spark. They just hire anyone these days." Sophia's back was to them, but she heard. She felt the word anyone like a physical slap. She paused, her grip tightening on the bottle. Serafina laughed, a sound like tiny, sharp bells. "Oh, be nice, Chad. She's probably exhausted from, carrying plates. It's such hard work." The spark. Sophia closed her eyes for a fraction of a second. The spark was the one thing she had to extinguish every night just to survive this job. The spark was the Juilliard prodigy who could command a stage with a single gesture. The spark was the girl who had been dubbed the next great voice of contemporary dance. The spark was a fire she had to smother, because if she let it burn, it would consume her and this entire suffocating restaurant in righteous flames. Damien finally looked up, his gaze sweeping over Sophia. It was not the look a man gives a woman. It was the look a biologist gives a specimen. He saw the black uniform, the tight bun, the worn shoes. He saw a utility. "She's fine," he pronounced, his voice dripping with aristocratic boredom. He took a sip of his wine. "She's exactly what she's supposed to be. Invisible." Sophia turned, the plastic smile cemented on her face. "Will there be anything else, Mr. Blackwood?" He smirked, a cruel, lazy lifting of one corner of his mouth. He looked past her, toward the center of the restaurant, where a small, polished wooden dance floor lay empty. The house jazz trio was playing something soft and forgettable. "Actually," Damien said, leaning back in his chair, "there is. I'm bored. This party is boring. This city is boring." He turned his full, unnerving attention back to Sophia. His eyes were the color of steel. "You," he said. "You look tense." Sophia's smile didn't waver. "I'm here to serve, sir." "I'm sure you are," he mused. He tapped a manicured finger on the stem of his glass. "That dance floor. It's empty. It's pathetic. This place needs some life." Chadwick and Serafina were watching him, sensing the beginning of one of his cruel games. "Sir," Sophia asked, her heart beginning a low, painful thud. "I want you to dance," Damien said. The silence that fell over table 7 was absolute. Even the distant clinking of silverware from across the room seemed to fade. Sophia was certain she had misheard. I beg your pardon, Mr. Blackwood." "You heard me," Damien said. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room's expensive hush. "Go out there, on the dance floor. Dance for us." Serafina let out a delighted, horrified gasp. "Damien, you can't be serious. She's a waitress." "That's the point, darling," Chadwick snickered, leaning forward, his eyes gleaming. "It's performance art, the proletariat expressing its joy." Sophia's body went rigid. The blood drained from her face, leaving her professional mask to crack. This was a new, refined level of humiliation. It wasn't just dismissal, it was mockery. "Sir, I'm working. I can't do that. It's against club policy." "Policy?" Damien chuckled, as if the word were a foreign delicacy he found distasteful. He signaled, and the club's manager, Mr. Henderson, materialized instantly, his face a mask of anxious placation. "Is there a problem, Mr. Blackwood?" "No problem at all, Henderson," Damien said smoothly, not taking his eyes off Sophia. "I was just informing your staff member here that I'd like her to dance. She seems to think you'd have an issue with that." Henderson's face went pale. He knew who Damien Blackwood was. Damien's father, Marcus Blackwood, practically owned the building. "Mr. Blackwood, our staff, they aren't trained for entertainment. Miss Hayes is one of our best servers." "Then she can serve me," Damien said, his voice hardening. "And right now, I want to be entertained. Or would you prefer I take my business, and my father's, to the Carlisle from now on?" The threat hung in the air, thick and toxic. Henderson looked at Sophia, his eyes pleading. "Just do something. Don't cost me my job." Sophia felt cornered. Every eye at the table was on her. Chadwick was filming with his phone, a smug grin on his face. Serafina was watching with the detached curiosity of someone watching an animal in a zoo. And Damien, his expression was the worst. It was one of pure, entitled expectation. He had ordered an item, and he expected it to be delivered. I don't dance, sir," Sophia whispered, the lie tasting like ash. Damien laughed, a real sharp, genuine laugh that was more insulting than any of his scoffs. "Of course you don't. Sweetheart, I'm not asking you to be good. I'm asking you to be amusing. Look." He reached into his jacket, pulled out a thick, platinum money clip, and peeled off several bills. He didn't just count them, he fanned them out. They were all $1,000 notes. $20,000, he said, his voice carrying. Nearby tables were starting to look. $20,000 if you can last 30 seconds on that dance floor without looking like a terrified mouse. Go on, entertain us. He tossed the money onto the center of the table. It landed next to a bread basket. $20,000. Sophia's mind didn't just calculate, it exploded. $20,000 was 4 months of rent. It was the experimental treatment her father's doctor had mentioned. It was a buffer against the crushing, suffocating weight that woke her up at 3 a.m. every morning. It was also the price of her soul. He was asking her to be a monkey in a cage, to perform for his amusement, to validate his belief that everyone and everything had a price. She looked at the money. She looked at his smug, handsome face. She looked at Chadwick's phone, still recording, and the fire she had smothered for so long, the one she kept banked and hidden, finally found a wisp of oxygen. A single, hot, terrifying ember of rage began to glow. It wasn't just about her. It was about her father. It was about the years of "yes, sir" and "no, sir," while the men who deserved to be serving them laughed from their penthouses. She thought of her father, struggling to lift a spoon. She thought of the Juilliard stage, the hot lights, the feeling of flight. She thought of Damien Blackwood, a man who had everything and valued nothing. He wants a show, she thought, the ember flaring into a blaze. I'll give him a show. Sophia Hayes looked Damien Blackwood dead in the eye. The plastic smile was gone, replaced by a stillness so profound it was menacing. "On one condition," she said, her voice low and clear. Damien raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Name it." "You stop the recording," she said, nodding at Chadwick, "and you change the music." "Oh, to what?" "Tell the trio," Sophia said, her voice devoid of any quiver, "to play Libertango, the Piazzolla version, and tell them to play it with everything they have." Damien's smirk widened. "A request. I like it." He snapped his fingers at Chadwick, who reluctantly lowered his phone. He then gestured to Henderson, who scrambled to the jazz trio. The manager whispered frantically. The pianist looked up, stunned, then nodded slowly to his bandmates. Damien leaned back. "The floor is yours, sweetheart." Sophia stood frozen for one more second. The room was watching. She could feel the judgment, the pity, the morbid curiosity. She undid the knot on her apron. She folded it meticulously, placing it on a nearby service station. She unpinned her name badge, Sophia, and set it on top of the apron. Then she turned and walked toward the empty dance floor. Her worn, sensible shoes made no sound on the plush carpet. The walk from table 7 to the dance floor was only 20 yards, but it felt like a mile-long gauntlet. The murmuring of the club had died, replaced by a heavy, expectant silence. Sophia could feel the stares of 50 diners on her back, each one a tiny pinprick of humiliation. Damien Blackwood's gaze was the heaviest, a palpable weight of bored, cruel amusement. She reached the edge of the polished oak floor. The jazz trio, looking baffled but intrigued, watched her. The pianist caught her eye. She gave him a single sharp nod. And then the music began. It didn't start softly. It started with a slash, a dissonant, violent chord from the piano, a mournful cry from the upright bass. This was not the polite dinner music from moments before. This was Astor Piazzolla's Libertango. It was a declaration of war. It was the sound of a revolution. Sophia stood perfectly still for the first 4 bars, her back to Damien's table. She closed her eyes. In her mind, she was no longer Sophia Hayes, waitress. She was not the broke daughter, the failed prodigy, the invisible servant. She was fire. She was grief. She was power. She let the music seep into her bones, let the complex, driving rhythm restart a heart she thought had stopped beating years ago. The throb in her temples was no longer from stress. It was from the beat. On the 5th bar, as the piano began its frantic, tumbling run, she moved. It was not the awkward shuffle Damien expected. It was not the embarrassed swaying of a woman put on the spot. It was an explosion. She didn't just step onto the floor. She commanded it. Her first movement was a sharp, percussive lunge, her arms slicing the air, her body dropping low to the floor in a move that was half tango, half contemporary ballet. Her center of gravity was impossibly low, her balance absolute. She rose up, not as a waitress, but as a dancer. Her spine, moments before hunched in deference, was now a rigid, proud line. Her head, once bowed, snapped up, her chin high. The tight, severe bun she wore no longer looked matronly. It looked severe, classical, like a flamenco dancer's. She let the music possess her. Every note was a muscle contraction. The frantic, staccato piano notes became a series of lightning-fast chassés and piqués, her worn shoes striking the floor with an audible, rhythmic precision that added to the song's percussion. The long, weeping notes of the bass became fluid, agonizing extensions, her leg unfolding into the air, her foot arching in a perfect, heartbreaking line, a memory of a point shoe. Damien Blackwood, who had been leaning back with a smirk, slowly sat upright. The wine glass in his hand stopped halfway to his lips. Serafina's mouth had fallen open. What is that? Chadwick, phone forgotten, was just staring. That's not possible. Sophia was no longer dancing for them. She was dancing for her father. She was dancing for her lost future. She was dancing to purge the poison of the last 2 years. Her movements were not just technically flawless, they were saturated with a raw, brutal emotion. She was dancing her rage. She spun, a blur of black and white, her arms creating a complex port de bras that spoke of years of relentless, agonizing training. She wasn't just on the beat, she was ahead of it, pushing it, challenging the musicians to keep up. The pianist, catching her fire, grinned and pounded the keys harder. The bassist's fingers flew. They had a real performer, a real artist, and they were rising to meet her. In the corner of the room, a distinguished, silver-haired man in a bespoke Xenia suit, who had been dining alone, slowly put down his fork. He watched Sophia, his eyes widening, first in disbelief, then in profound, earth-shattering recognition. He dropped his napkin. "Mon Dieu," he whispered. "It cannot be." The song reached its crescendo. Sophia was a whirlwind. She was executing a sequence of fouette turns, a move from classical ballet, but she had corrupted them, infused them with the raw, grounded anger of the tango. It was a hybrid style he had never seen before. It was brilliant. For her finale, she didn't strike a triumphant pose. As the final, crashing chord echoed through the room, she threw her entire body into a controlled fall, catching herself on one hand, her other arm thrown back, her head bowed, her chest heaving. She ended in a pose not of triumph, but of beautiful, defiant surrender. For 3 solid seconds, the entire Orion Club was utterly, completely silent. You could hear the hum of the ventilation. Then, starting from the corner table, the silver-haired man shot to his feet, clapping. "Brava!" he roared. "Brava!" It broke the spell. The room erupted. It wasn't polite applause. It was a standing ovation. It was thunder. People were on their feet, shouting, whistling. The jazz trio looked stunned, tears in the pianist's eyes. Sophia held the pose, her body trembling with adrenaline and the release of years of pent-up artistry. Then, slowly, she rose. She didn't smile. She didn't curtsy. She simply turned and looked directly at table 7. Damien Blackwood was on his feet, though he seemed unaware he had stood. His face was pale, his eyes wide, all traces of boredom and arrogance sandblasted away, replaced by something raw, shock, awe, and something else, confusion. He had just dared a goddess to dance, and she had. Sophia's chest heaved, but her gaze was unwavering. She was the one in control now. The power dynamic of the entire 63rd floor had fractured and reformed around her. She was no longer the servant. He was no longer the master. They were just a man and a woman, and she had just shown him her soul. She walked back to the table. The applause was still ringing in her ears, but she blocked it out. She walked past Chadwick, who shrank back in his seat. She walked past Serafina, who was staring at her with a new, venomous jealousy. She stood before Damien. He was still speechless, his mind visibly racing, trying to reconcile the invisible girl in the sensible shoes with the force of nature that had just commanded the floor. He fumbled, for the first time in his life. He started. That was... He reached for the stack of money on the table, the 20,000 sols. He pushed it toward her. His hand was trembling, just slightly. Here, you earned this. Sophia looked at the money, the cash that, 10 minutes ago, represented a lifeline. It was a solution. It was rent. It was medicine. Now it looked like an insult. She met his steel-colored eyes, and hers were colder. I didn't dance for your money, Mr. Blackwood. Her voice was quiet, but it was sharper than the knife next to his $300 steak. What? Damien asked, genuinely confused. I told you I don't dance, she said. What you just saw, that wasn't a dance. That was a refusal. She picked up the platinum money clip. The cash was still held in its grip. She held it out to him. Damien just stared at it. I danced, Sophia continued, her voice so low only he could hear it, to remind myself of who I am, and to show you precisely who you are not. She dropped the money clip back onto the table. The metallic thud was the loudest sound she had ever heard. Keep your bet, she said. Without another word, she turned and walked to the service station. She picked up her folded apron and her name badge. She did not put them back on. She held them in her hand, turned to a stunned Mr. Henderson, and said, I quit. She walked toward the service exit, her back straight, her head high. She didn't run. She exited. Wait, Damien called out, his voice cracking with an urgency that shocked everyone, including himself. Wait, who are you? Sophia paused at the door, but she didn't turn around. I'm the person you thought you could buy for $20,000, she said, and then she was gone, disappearing through the swinging doors. Damien stood, breathing heavily, staring at the door. Well, Chadwick said, trying to break the tension. That was dramatic. So, about that money. Shut up, Chadwick, Damien snapped, rounding on him with a ferocity that made him flinch. Before Damien could process what to do next, the silver-haired man from the corner table was at his side. He was tall, radiated authority, and looked at Damien with open disgust. "You," the man said, his voice laced with a thick Parisian accent. "You are Damien Blackwood, no?" "I am," Damien said, bristling at the man's tone. "And you are?" "My name is Antoine Dubois." The name hit the room like a second shockwave. Even Serafina knew that name. Antoine Dubois was not just a choreographer. He was the choreographer. He was the artistic director of the Paris Opera Ballet, a living legend who had choreographed for everyone from Baryshnikov to the most cutting-edge contemporary companies. "You, sir," Antoine said, his eyes flashing with contempt, "are an arrogant, ignorant child. You just offered $20,000 to Sophia Hayes." Damien's confusion mounted. You know her?" Antoine let out a sound of disbelief. "Know her? Know her. I was a guest lecturer at Juilliard when she was a freshman. She was not just a student, monsieur. She was a prodigy. She was the one we all wait for. She had a technique I have seen only in masters, and a heart, a fire. She was destined to redefine the art form." Damien felt a cold pit opening in his stomach. Was? What happened? Antoine's gaze softened with a deep, abiding sadness. "She vanished 2 years ago, dropped out, left New York. No one knew why. We all thought, we mourned. We thought the world had lost her. And tonight, I find her. I find her here." He gestured around the opulent room. "Serving wine to you." Antoine turned and marched toward the service exit Sophia had disappeared through. "Sophia! Sophia, attende!" Damien was left alone at his table. The money clip sat mockingly on the white linen. He had not just humiliated a waitress. He had desecrated an artist. He felt something he hadn't felt in a decade. Shame. It was quickly followed by a new, burning, unfamiliar sensation. Curiosity. He grabbed his phone. He didn't text his father. He didn't text his broker. He texted his private investigator. "Find everything you can on Sophia Hayes, Juilliard, 2023. Find out why she left." Sophia burst through the service doors and into the sterile, fluorescent-lit hallway of the kitchens. She didn't stop until she was in the employee locker room, a cramped, windowless space that smelled of industrial soap and stale coffee. Only then did she let her body betray her. Her legs gave out, and she slumped onto a metal bench, the adrenaline leaching away, leaving a bone-deep tremor in its wake. She had done it. She had quit. She had thrown away the single, precarious lifeline that was keeping her and her father afloat. The panic rose in her throat, cold and choking. What had she done? That $20,000. She had thrown it back in his face. It was pride. It was madness. Her father's physical therapist wouldn't accept pride as payment. "Sophia, Mademoiselle Hayes." The locker room door swung open, and Antoine Dubois filled the doorway, his face flushed. Sophia looked up, her eyes wide with shock. "Monsieur Dubois?" she whispered, her voice trembling. She hadn't seen him since her freshman year showcase. He was a god in her world. "It is you," he breathed, stepping inside. He ignored the dingy lockers, the stained floor. He only saw her. "I watched you dance." My heart. It stopped. I thought I was seeing a ghost. "Sir, What happened, Sophia?" he asked, his voice gentle but insistent. He sat on the bench opposite her. "One day, you were the future. The next, you were gone. No one knew anything. I thought you had given up." Tears, hot and angry, finally welled in Sophia's eyes, the tears she had refused to shed in front of Damien. "Given up?" she said, her voice cracking. "I didn't give up, monsieur. I was taken out." "By what? By whom?" Sophia took a ragged breath, and the story she had held captive for 2 years finally broke free. "My father," she began, her voice gaining a cold clarity. "My father was Arthur Hayes. He was a partner at an investment firm, a small, very successful one he built from the ground up with his best friend." "Arthur Hayes," Antoine said, testing the name. I do not recall." "You wouldn't," Sophia said bitterly. By the time they were done with him, no one would return his calls. His firm was called Hayes and Blackwood. Antoine's eyes widened. "Blackwood? As in Marcus Blackwood," Sophia confirmed. "Damien Blackwood's father, my father's partner, his best friend." She stood up, pacing the small space, the words pouring out of her. 2 years ago, the SEC raided the firm. There was a massive scandal. Hundreds of millions of dollars gone, embezzled, hidden in offshore accounts, and the entire paper trail, every fake wire transfer, every doctored ledger, it all pointed to one man. "Your father," Antoine whispered. "My father," she affirmed, a tear tracing a hot path down her cheek. Marcus Blackwood played the part of the shocked, betrayed partner perfectly. He was on every news channel, promising to make clients whole, expressing his deep personal disappointment in the man he'd trusted. He was a hero. My father was the villain. But it was not true. "He was framed," Sophia said, her voice a low growl. "Marcus Blackwood engineered the entire thing. He stole the money, and he used my father as his scapegoat. He ruined him. The stress, the public humiliation, the betrayal. My father had a catastrophic stroke. He's been in neurological care ever since. We lost everything. The house, the savings, my Juilliard scholarship. Everything. Wiped out by the Blackwood family." "Sophia," Antoine said, his face a mask of horror. "You have been carrying this. Mon Dieu. And tonight, that boy, he is the son." "He is the son," Sophia repeated. "The son of the man who destroyed my life." And he stood there, bored, and offered me $20,000 to jiggle for him. The rage was back, pure and clean. When I was dancing, monsieur, I wasn't dancing for him. I was dancing for my father. I was showing that arrogant child what a Hayes is made of. We are not weak. We do not break. And we do not dance for their money." Antoine was silent for a long moment, processing the sheer Shakespearean tragedy of it all. "Sophia," he said finally, his voice thick with emotion. "What you did out there tonight, it was not just a dance. It was a masterpiece. It was pain and it was rage, and it was the most honest piece of art I have seen in a decade." He stood and took her hands. His were warm and strong. "You cannot be here. You cannot serve these vultures. Your father, this injustice, it is terrible. But to waste a gift like yours, that is the true crime. You were born to be on a stage, Sophia, not in their kitchens." "A stage doesn't pay for neurological specialists, monsieur," Sophia said wearily. "Forget the money," he insisted. "Come with me. I'm opening a new contemporary show in the spring. The Phoenix. It's about rising from the ashes. The lead role, I haven't cast it. I couldn't find her. But I have found her now. It is you, Sophia. Come and dance for me. Let us show the world what they tried to destroy." Sophia looked at his outstretched hand, her heart pounding. It was everything she had ever dreamed of. It was a way back. It was life. Meanwhile, in a black Mercedes S-Class speeding downtown, Damien Blackwood stared at his phone as the first reports from his investigator came in. Subject: Sophia Hayes, age 23, accepted to Juilliard, Dance Division, full scholarship, 2021, considered generational talent by faculty. Status: withdrew, October 2023. Reason cited: personal family matters. Attached: news reports, October 2023. Wall Street firm: Hayes and Blackwood implodes in massive fraud scandal. Attached: CEO Arthur Hayes indicted on 12 counts of wire fraud embezzlement. Attached: Marcus Blackwood, Blackwood Capital, pledges full cooperation with investigators. Utterly betrayed. Damien read the names: Hayes and Blackwood, Arthur Hayes, Marcus Blackwood. His blood ran cold. The girl, the waitress he had just tried to buy, was the daughter of the man his father had publicly destroyed. He had a sudden, vivid memory of that time. His father at their dinner table, looking triumphant. "We're finally free of that dead weight, Damien. The Hayes name is mud. Blackwood Capital is ours, as it should have been all along." At the time, he'd thought his father meant business, a partnership dissolving. He'd never looked deeper. He never cared to. Now, he looked at the picture of Sophia Hayes on his phone, a Juilliard headshot, her face bright, alive, and full of promise. He compared it to the face he'd seen tonight, the cold, beautiful, broken fury. He had not just dared a waitress to dance. He had, in his arrogance, danced on the grave of her family, and in doing so, he may have just resurrected a ghost that his father had buried very, very deep. Damien arrived at his penthouse in a daze. The familiar view of Central Park, a dark, sprawling rectangle edged in diamonds, offered no comfort. He bypassed his $100,000 stereo system and the Italian marble bar, walking straight to his study. He didn't just read his investigator's report, he devoured it. He cross-referenced names, dates, and LLCs. He pulled up the archived news reports, watching his father, Marcus, standing on the steps of the courthouse, his face a perfect mask of sober regret. "I built this firm with Arthur Hayes," Marcus said to the cameras, his voice resonating with false sincerity. "To find that he, my friend, was robbing our clients blind. It's a betrayal I will never truly recover from." Damien watched the clip 3 times. He'd always seen his father as a shark, ruthless, efficient, and honest about his own self-interest. But this was the performance of a grieving victim. It was too good. It was the same polished veneer his father used when charming a politician or closing a hostile takeover. He thought of Sophia's dance, the libertango, the tango of freedom. It wasn't just a performance, it was a confession. It was a story of rage and loss. You couldn't fake that. You couldn't learn that level of emotional honesty in a dance class. You had to live it. And she had been living it while serving him champagne. A deep, unsettling doubt, a feeling he was wholly unfamiliar with, began to twist in his gut. His entire life had been built on the Blackwood name, on the unshakable foundation that his father was a titan of industry. What if that foundation was built on a lie? What if his inheritance was, in fact, stolen? He picked up his phone and made a call. "Father," he said, when the older man picked up. "Damien," Marcus Blackwood's voice boomed, even over the phone. "I trust your dinner at the Orion was satisfactory. I just approved their lease extension. You must remind them who keeps the lights on." "The dinner was eventful," Damien said, rubbing his temples. "Father, I have a question. It's about an old partner of yours, Arthur Hayes." The silence on the other end of the line was immediate and absolute. It was so total that Damien thought the call had dropped. "Why?" Marcus finally said, his voice stripped of all its warmth. "Are you saying that name to me?" "I met his daughter tonight," Damien said, choosing his words carefully. "His daughter?" Marcus scoffed, but there was a new, sharp edge to his voice. "Is she begging for money?" "I told them 20 years ago. I told them 2 years ago. The Hayes family are criminals. You are not to associate with them, Damien. They are poison. She wasn't begging, Father. She was working." At the Orion, another pause, this one even more charged. "Working? As what?" "A waitress." "Good," Marcus spat. "That's where she belongs. The gutter is too good for them after what Arthur did to our clients. To me." The sheer, unadulterated venom in his father's voice startled Damien. It wasn't the voice of a man who had been disappointed by a friend. It was the voice of a man expressing pure, triumphant hatred. "What exactly did he do, Father?" Damien pushed, his doubt solidifying. The reports were clear he was the sole actor, but the mechanics, it was sophisticated. He must have had help. "He was a degenerate gambler," Marcus snapped. "A fool. He got in over his head and thought he could steal his way out. He was weak, and I cut him out. That's all you need to know. Now, I have a call with Hong Kong. Do not mention that family to me again." The line clicked dead. Damien stared at the phone. A degenerate gambler. That was new. He typed it into his investigator's search bar. Arthur Hayes gambling. Nothing. No reports, no whispers, no casino debts. Arthur Hayes had been famously frugal, a man who drove a 10-year-old Volvo and donated heavily to the Philharmonic. It didn't fit. His father had lied. A small lie, perhaps, a detail to colour the story. But why? Damien felt a sudden, visceral need to see her again. Not to apologize, the word felt foreign and useless, but to understand. He had to know if the suspicion, now eating him alive, was real. He called his investigator back. "The girl, Sophia Hayes, I don't just want her past, I want her present. Where is she, right now?" 3 days later, Sophia stood in the center of a vast, sunlit dance studio in Soho. It was Antoine Dubois' private rehearsal space. For the first time in 2 years, she was wearing proper dance attire, not a waitress uniform. The soft leather of her ballet slippers felt like coming home. She was also in agony. Her body, conditioned to the short, sharp bursts of restaurant work, was screaming in protest. Her muscles, once honed to perfection, were tight and weak. The libertango at the club had been pure adrenaline. This was work. "Again," Antoine commanded, not unkindly. He tapped his cane on the floor. "The pirouette. You are spotting the wall, Sophia. Spot me. You are not a student. You are a phoenix. Your turn must be a rebirth, not a repetition. Again." Sophia set her jaw, took a breath, and launched into the combination. She was sloppy. Her balance was off. She landed the turn with a wobble and a grimace. "This is useless," she cried, stopping in frustration. "I've lost it. My technique, it's gone. I'm a fraud, Antoine. You hired a ghost." "I hired a fighter," Antoine said, walking over to her. He stood in front of her. "Your technique is sleeping. Your passion is wide awake. That is what matters. The muscles will remember. But you must be patient." "Patient?" Sophia laughed, a harsh, dry sound. "My father is being moved to a state-run facility at the end of the month because I can't afford his private care. That was the money I threw back in Damien Blackwood's face. I don't have time to be patient." "So you dance with that," Antoine said simply. "You dance the rage. You dance the deadline. You dance the rent. Use it. Do not let it use you." He was about to restart the music when the studio's frosted glass doors buzzed. Antoine's assistant, a young man named Leo, peeked in. "Monsieur Dubois, I'm sorry to interrupt. There's a Mr. Blackwood here to see Ms. Hayes." Sophia's blood turned to ice. "Tell him to go to hell," she said, her voice flat. "He's very insistent," Leo said nervously. "He says it's about her father." Sophia's heart hammered against her ribs. Her father. Had he done something? Had his father found out she was trying to rebuild her life and decided to crush her completely? Before she could answer, the studio door slid open, and Damien Blackwood stood there. He was not the man from the club. He was dressed in a simple dark sweater and jeans, his hair was unkempt, and his eyes were shadowed, as if he hadn't slept. He looked, for the first time, human. He looked at Sophia, taking in the studio, the sweat on her brow, the fire in her eyes. "Mr. Dubois," Damien said, his voice quiet. "My apologies for trespassing. May I have 5 minutes with Miss Hayes? It is a matter of extreme importance." "You have had your 5 minutes," Antoine said, stepping in front of Sophia. "You will leave this place." "It's about Arthur Hayes," Damien said, his eyes locked on Sophia. "It's about the fraud. I think my father lied." The studio was silent. Sophia stared at Damien, her mind reeling. "What did you say?" "My father lied to me," Damien said, taking a cautious step into the room. "About your father, I've been digging. The degenerate gambler story he told me. It was a fabrication. There's nothing to support it. But there is something else." "What are you doing?" Sophia asked, her voice sharp with suspicion. "Is this another game? Did you get bored and decide to investigate the poor little waitress's tragic past?" "No," Damien said, and the simple, profound sincerity in his voice stopped her. I'm trying to find the truth. The story doesn't add up. My father's reactions don't add up. And your dance." He gestured around the studio. This doesn't add up with the daughter of a criminal." He pulled a small, leather-bound notebook from his pocket. "The SEC investigation was sealed, but the case files are public record. The key witness against your father, the one who provided the smoking gun ledgers, was your father's CFO, a man named Peter Sullivan." Sophia's breath hitched. "Peter. He was like an uncle to me. He testified. He said my father confessed to him. That's what sealed the case." "Exactly," Damien said. "And where is Peter Sullivan now?" "He retired immediately after the trial. He moved to a private, gated community in Boca Raton, Florida, bought a $4 million condo and a yacht, all paid for in cash." "He was paid off," Antoine whispered, his eyes wide. "He was paid off," Damien confirmed, his face grim. "By a shell corporation, a corporation I've been trying to trace for 3 days. It's a ghost. But the payments, they were authorized from a bank in the Cayman Islands, a bank my father has used for his most private holding companies for 30 years. Sophia felt the floor tilt. It was one thing to believe her father was innocent. It was another to see the first, tangible thread of the conspiracy that had ruined him. "Why are you telling me this?" Sophia asked, her voice trembling. "What do you want from me?" "I want Sullivan," Damien said, his eyes intense. "I'm flying to Florida tonight. I'm going to find him, and I'm going to make him talk. But he won't talk to me. I'm Marcus Blackwood's son. He'll see me and run. But you are Arthur Hayes's daughter. He betrayed you. He might feel guilt. He might feel something. Come with me." "Go with you?" Sophia recoiled. "The son of the man who framed my father. How do I know this isn't a trap? How do I know you're not just trying to clean up your father's mess? Find out what I know." "Because," Damien said, "I have this." He held up his phone. "It's a one-way ticket to Boca Raton, and this He pulled a certified check from his jacket. "Is for $50,000. Not from me. From a Friends of Juilliard anonymous arts grant that Monsieur Dubois helped me arrange. It's for your father's care. It's already been deposited." Sophia looked at Antoine, stunned. Antoine nodded, his face serious. "He is telling the truth, Sophia. The money is real. Your father is safe for now." Sophia turned back to Damien, her mind a war of suspicion and desperate, terrible hope. "If you're doing this, if you're turning against your own father, why? For me? I don't believe you." Damien looked away for a moment, struggling with the answer. "I told you I was bored," he said, his voice low. "I've been bored my whole life. I've lived in a world where everything is easy, everything is fake, and nothing matters. And then I saw you dance. That was the first real thing I've seen in, maybe ever. It wasn't just a dance. It was the truth." "I've spent my life inheriting lies, Sophia," he said, meeting her gaze. "I'm tired of it. I don't care about the money. I don't care about the company. I want to know what's real. Your father's innocence. That feels real. I have to know." Sophia looked at Antoine, who gave her a slight, encouraging nod. She took a deep breath. She was a dancer, yes, but she was Arthur Hayes' daughter first. This was her one chance. "Okay," she said. "I'll go. But we do this my way." 48 hours later, Sophia stood on the manicured gravel pathway of a sprawling Spanish-style villa in Boca Raton. The air was thick with humidity and the smell of salt water. Damien was a few yards behind, out of sight. The door opened, and Peter Sullivan stood there. He was older, deeply tanned, but his eyes were haunted. He was holding a glass of scotch. When he saw Sophia, the glass slipped from his fingers and shattered on the marble tile. "Sophia," he whispered, his face ashen. "My God, you look just like my father," Sophia said, her voice like ice. "Before you destroyed him." I don't know what you mean," Sullivan stammered, trying to close the door. "I think you do," Sophia said, pushing past him. "I know about the condo, Peter. I know about the yacht. I know about the Caymans. I know Marcus Blackwood paid you to send my father to prison." Sullivan's legs gave out, and he stumbled back, collapsing into an overstuffed armchair. "You don't understand," he whimpered, tears welling in his eyes. He threatened me. He threatened my family. He said I'd be at the bottom of the Hudson. He had it all planned. He said Arthur was dead weight, and he was cleaning house. I was terrified. "And my father," Sophia cried, the years of pain erupting. "What about him?" "He's in a wheelchair, Peter. He can barely speak. You were his friend." I know, Sullivan sobbed, holding his head. "I've lived with it every day, every single day. I'm a coward. I'm a miserable coward." "Then stop being one," a new voice said. Damien Blackwood stepped in from the patio, his phone in his hand, recording. Sullivan looked up, and his face went from pale to ghostly white. "Blackwood, oh God, it is a trap." "It's not a trap," Damien said, his voice cold. "It's a choice. You can go to prison for perjury and conspiracy, and I will send you there. Or you can tell us the truth. You can help Sophia get her father's name back, because I am not my father, and I am not going to let this stand." Sullivan looked from Damien's hard, determined face to Sophia's, which was etched with pain and a desperate plea for justice. He broke. The confession came out in a flood of guilt and fear. He told them everything. How Marcus had created the fake accounts, how he'd siphoned the money, how he'd forced Sullivan to plant the evidence on Arthur's computer and then lie to the SEC. "Is there proof?" Damien asked, his voice sharp. "Besides your word?" "Yes," Sullivan whispered, his body shaking. I was a coward. But I wasn't stupid. I knew one day he might decide I was dead weight, too. I kept insurance. He walked to a heavy mahogany desk, opened a hidden safe, and pulled out an encrypted hard drive. "It's all here," he said, his hands trembling as he handed it to Damien. "Every offshore wire transfer, every doctored email from Marcus's personal server, the original ledgers. It's everything." Damien took the drive. This was it, the key to dismantling his entire family's legacy. He looked at Sophia. Her face was a mask of stunned, heart-breaking hope. "It's over," she whispered. "No," Damien said, slipping the drive into his pocket. "It's just beginning. My father won't go down in a courtroom. He's too connected. We have to expose him in a way he can't escape, in a way the entire world sees." "How?" Damien looked at her, a plan forming in his mind. "My father is being honored next week at the Legacy of Industry Gala at the Met. He's giving the keynote speech." He allowed himself a small, cold smile. "I think it's time we changed the program." The Metropolitan Museum of Art was a temple to Marcus Blackwood. The Great Hall was filled with the most powerful people in New York, all there to honor him at the Legacy of Industry Gala. Sophia Hayes watched from the shadows, with Antoine Dubois at her side, as Marcus took the stage. "Thank you," Marcus began, his voice booming. "When I think of legacy, I think of trust. I think of integrity. The Blackwood name has always been synonymous with—" Click. The massive screens behind him flickered. The Blackwood Capital logo vanished, replaced by Peter Sullivan's tear-stained face. "My name is Peter Sullivan," his voice echoed, "and I am here to confess that I, under direct threat from Marcus Blackwood, helped frame Arthur Hayes for a fraud he did not commit." The hall erupted in gasps. Marcus whipped around, his face turning red. "Turn it off! Shut this down!" But the screens now showed bank ledgers and a damning email from Marcus himself. "The paper trail is complete. He'll be the only one who takes the fall. We are finally free of the dead weight." "Lies," Marcus bellowed. "Are they, father?" Damien Blackwood walked onto the stage, holding his own microphone. He stood opposite his father, the evidence blazing behind them. "Are they all lies, or did you betray your best friend, destroy his family, and leave him for dead, all for money?" "You," Marcus whispered, his face ashen with the horror of a king being deposed by his own heir. "My own son." "Your son is done inheriting lies," Damien said, turning to the stunned audience. "The real hero tonight isn't Marcus Blackwood. He's a man sitting in a nursing home in Queens. His name is Arthur Hayes." As if on cue, two uniformed NYPD officers and agents from the SEC walked calmly toward the stage. The game was over. Sophia watched as they led Marcus away. She didn't feel triumph. She just felt quiet. The great roaring fire of rage that had fueled her for 2 years had finally, peacefully, burned out. 6 months later, the sign over the door was new, the Hayes Center for Dance. The building, a once abandoned warehouse, had been purchased with the first restitution payments from the frozen Blackwood assets. Arthur Hayes's name was cleared. Sophia was stretching at the bar, alone in the vast studio, when she saw a reflection in the doorway. It was Damien. He was thinner, dressed in a simple shirt and slacks. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a quiet humility. He was holding a ledger book. "I heard you were running the center yourself," he said, not stepping all the way in. "The financials, the payroll. I figured you might need a business manager. I'm applying for the job. Pro bono. Sophia stopped stretching, studying him. Why, Damien? Why would you want to do this? I've spent my whole life around things that are fake, he said, his voice low. I want to be around something real. I want to build, not just own. And, he met her gaze, I want to earn the right to be in the same room as you. He set the ledger down on her desk. I can start tomorrow, if you'll have me. Sophia looked at the ledger. She looked at him. The man who had, in his cruelty, given her back her life. He had destroyed his own to give her justice. It wasn't forgiveness, she felt. It was something more complex. It was a beginning. She picked up the ledger and handed it back to him. You're late, Sophia Hayes said, a small, genuine smile touching her lips. We start today. And Damien? Don't be sloppy. He took the book, and the smile that broke across his face was the first real thing she had ever seen from him. It wasn't the dance of a king or the dance of a waitress. It was the slow, difficult, and beautiful dance of redemption. That night, Damien Blackwood dared a waitress to dance, and Sophia Hayes answered. But the story didn't end on the dance floor. It ended with the truth. It's a reminder that the person you dismiss might just be the one holding the power to change your world. Justice, like a dance, requires passion, precision, and the courage to take the first step. What did you think of Damien's final choice? Do you believe he truly redeemed himself? Or does he still have more to do to earn Sophia's trust? Let us know what you think in the comments below. If you loved Sophia's powerful story of karmic justice, please hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to see it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more incredible real-life dramas every single week. Thank you for listening.